Hello, welcome to Judges chapter 10. A couple of things that I'm sure you've noticed as you've read through this portion of Scripture is, again, I mean, it's a pretty short chapter, but most of the things within it are very intuitive to how we live our lives today. Interesting how I mean it does start, of course, with Tola and Jair, and they're just two basic judges, once again correcting the wrongs that Abimelech had placed in the hearts of men by falsely becoming forcing himself to be king and not actually being a judge of any sort and ruling for 3 years. But it's interesting, in contrast to that, we see that these two are rule for about 22 and 23 years, which is neat because under the hand of God, good things happen. Good things happen for an extended period of time, and the Israelites do good in the eyes of the Lord. Now that, of course, once again, as Jair died, the Israelites did worse than normal. They, instead of just taking Baal and Asheroth, the two that were typical for them, they took all kinds of gods of Aram, Sidon, Moab, Ammon, Philistines, and the like. And so, and it doesn't say that they didn't worship God as well, that some didn't worship God, but the reason it's attributed that they do this sort of thing usually is not just to forsake God for the sake of forsaking God. Typically they do that sort of thing so they can gain a kind of camaraderie with those people around them, and so they won't be attacked. So they import all these different gods from all the surrounding neighboring countries and tribes so that they don't get attacked. Kind of like if you come into the network of Christians and you're a Christian, all of a sudden now you have this bond with all Christians. And so it's sort of the same idea, I'm sure. So they get all of these different bad gods, and the old saying holds true that if the whole heart isn't God's, it doesn't take long for the whole heart to belong to others. So then they say, our gods aren't working, our gods aren't working. The British are coming, the British are coming. But and so God says to them, well, go look at your God, your false gods. So it's interesting, instead of repenting first, they go to God first. So it's kind of like a child who's looking for an assignment, for example, the next morning that they did their homework and everything, but the room is messy, and they come up to their parent and they say, I can't find my assignment, I can't find my assignment, it's due today, what do I do? And the parent says, well, look at your room behind you, clean up your room, and then you might be able to find it. But I'm not helping you because I've always told you to clean your room. It's the same kind of thing here, where God is saying, playing sort of the father, the loving, caring father, saying, go clean your room, and then we'll talk. Go to your other gods and see in this mess that you've created for yourself, see where you can find your own salvation, because I'm sick of you coming to me with all this other stuff. And so that's exactly what they do. The Ammonites come in and they attack. They come northwest and they attack Judah, Ephraim, and the tribe of Benjamin, all kind of in the same area there. And so this is what's really interesting, is they finally say, fine, whatever pleases the Lord, whatever punishment you will delve out to us, we will take it. We are kind of throwing themselves at the mercy of the court, saying, well, whatever, if we get rid of this and clean our room, will you help us find our homework? Same kind of story here. Instead of just sitting back and waiting for God to act, they take action in rooting out all of those evil gods, evil temptations, the things that harm them. And then God's anger is subsided, and he no longer burns with anger against them. He actually, it even says he can no longer bear the misery of Israel no longer. And so then this is the first time since the taking of the 12 tribes of Israel and the allocating of their possession of land. This is the first time that all of Israel stood as one against an oppressor. So if you look on the map, which I'm going to provide right away here, there's it's divided in, if Judah, Ephraim, and Benjamin are taken over by the Ammonites, then the 12 tribes of Israel, north and south, northeast, southwest, really, are kind of divided and with the Ammonites in between. So when they get together, the sons of Ammon all camp into one section, most likely because the Israelites have converged into one place and kind of pushed like the center of an apple with everything else around it. If there's an inward pressure, it would compress and compress and compress until they're in this one small little wee section. And so that's exactly what happens. Now, the tribes of Israel, all of them, come together and they camp out at Mizpah, which is, if you recall, out of in Genesis when Jacob shook hands with Laban and made their treaty. This is the place where that happened, allegedly. So they do that, and so this leads us up to kind of the foreshadowing for Judges chapter 11, where Jephthah is the new judge and he does a good work. So it's a precursor to that. I'm looking forward to reading that with you. But for now, let's think about Judges chapter 11 and how sometimes we say, I remember two specific good examples of this. One is in the movie Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg. One of the basketball players is cheating on his wife, and she says to him, "What are you doing? Just bring her flowers, apologize." And he says, "Well, what if she doesn't take me back?" He says, "Will that do any good?" She says, "I don't know, but apologize and keep apologizing until she takes you back." And he says, "Well, what if she never does?" And Whoopi Goldberg says, "Then it serves you right. Keep apologizing until he does." That's kind of what the Israelites do here. They throw themselves at the mercy of God and say, "Look, we screwed up, we know, and as a loving father, whatever the punishment is, we'll take it," and then move forward in serving God. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think about when I look at this, I think about a Bill Cosby example where he says, he was in the casino and everybody is praying to God and Jesus and, "Oh God, if it just goes black 39, I'll go to church this week," or making deals with God. And you think about that and you look at all this, God can't even keep track of it all. And so he just says, "That's it, bust everybody." And so that's just it. I mean, it's the same thing that's going on here. When the Israelites are in the middle of all of their sin, they look to God for help when they themselves got themselves in it. And God doesn't come to their aid right away. And it's the same style of thing where sometimes we have to, God leaves us to our own devices as a punishment of the reason why we are in the trouble we're in. And it's only until once we get rid of something like that that we can go back to Him. Now, I know that some of you are watching this and think, well, what about grace? What about your ability through Jesus Christ to come to God whenever you want and ask for forgiveness? Absolutely, there's no question in my mind that is the case as well. But that doesn't mean that God doesn't allow for punishment or remain silent to teach us a lesson, even though we ask for something. It's not. He doesn't necessarily answer us right away for our own good. And that's the thing we have to focus on, that if you're praying for something and you're waiting for something, sometimes God doesn't answer right away. Sometimes He answers with silence so that you become a better person because of it. Just like a good parent disciplines their child or withholds something from them to help them learn a lesson so they can become better human beings. God does the same thing with people in their faith. So just because you're asking for forgiveness and laying yourself down at God's feet, just like the Israelites did here, through the blood of Christ. Yes, there is forgiveness. Yes, there is the cleansing of your sin, and your sin is far from the east is from the west. But there is still the requirement of redemption there, that that God might still punish you, or God will still punish you. It's like a child saying, "Yes, Father, I know I broke your car or whatever, your favorite golf club, hitting the pool balls with it, but I'm sorry." And the parent says, "Well, I appreciate that you've done that, but you're still grounded as a punishment for that." So it's not just, "Hey, welcome back into the family. No problem, no problem." Sometimes we have to accept our lumps just the way they are, and that's a part of being a Christian. That's a part of having full reconciliation with God. Is when the sin is removed, we're reconciled with God, but that doesn't mean that He doesn't still ground us for taking His golf clubs and hitting pool balls with them. So something to think about this week. I look forward to next week, and we're going to read a little bit about Jephthah. It's one of the more important judges in this book. So I look forward to going through that with you. Have yourself a wonderful week, and as you're thinking this week about what can I do better as I'm becoming a better Christian and relying on God for that, how can I take my own initiative and work on those things as well, and allow grace to make up the difference of when we fail. So think about that, and I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.